Bottom line is you get what you expect and you've got the control. And when you start to realize that it all comes down to your mindset, those key attributes of seeing possibility, taking action, being courageous.
Welcome to the What Up Doc University podcast, your number one resource for total body wellness. Here's your host, Dr. Mike.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the What Up Doc University podcast. This is Dr. Mike Okuuchi coming back to you on this Wellness Wednesday to bring you another jam-packed, full of information podcast from the What Up Doc University podcast. You know, it's been a crazy couple of weeks. We've had some amazing guests on the show, some amazing feedback that you guys have been giving us about some of the shows, some of the information that you guys have heard and then put into action. Because remember, guys, said that's one of the biggest things is you putting the stuff that we're putting out into action. If this is your first time listening to the show, welcome. Hope you guys like what we have to offer here on the show. We try to bring you guys some of the best in health and wellness. I'm a full-time practicing chiropractic physician out here in Irvine, California. And my whole goal is to bring you the information that's not, a lot of the stuff we see on the internet, sometimes it may be filled with a little spin to it. I want to bring you guys the really jam-packed, full of science, backed research information. So that's my whole goal. I spend a lot of time scouring the annals of PubMed and all of the different research studies and reading books and all that kind of stuff to bring you guys in the information that we present to this on a show. And today's podcast is going to be something that you guys will want to listen to again and again. And this is a very, very special guest, none other than celebrity, I can't even speak today, celebrity nutrition and fitness expert JJ Virgin. She teaches clients how to lose weight, master their mind so that they can lead bigger and better lives. She's the author of 4 New York Times bestsellers. You guys got to go out there and get these books, The Virgin Diet, The Virgin Diet Cookbook, JJ Virgin's Sugar Impact Diet, and JJ Virgin's Sugar Impact Diet Cookbook. But today we're talking about her memoir, The Miracle Mindset, A Mother, Her Son, and Life's Hardest Lessons, explores the powerful lessons in strength, positivity that she learned after her son Grant was the victim of a brutal hit-and-run accident. Guys, this is something that you hear about it, and especially as a parent, you're gonna want to shed a tear a little bit, because it made me really look at life a different way. JJ hosts the popular JJ Virgin's Lifestyle Show podcast and regularly writes for Huffington Post, Rodale Fitness, and other major blogs and magazines. She's also a frequent guest on TV and radio and speaks at major events. In addition to her work with nutrition and fitness, because she's not busy enough, right? JJ is also a business coach and founded the premier health entrepreneur event and community, the Mindshare Summit. You can find articles, recipes, and other helpful online programs and more at www.jjvirgin.com. Guys, she is a ball of energy, and it was a fun time speaking to her and just being in her presence so that she could share her story. And a lot of times, if you've heard JJ in the past and you may have seen her videos, she talks about the diets and the fitness and the impact. But in her latest book, The Miracle Mindset, she talks about the part that I emphasize a lot within practice. And it's about the mindset, guys. So I want you guys to listen to what she says. I want you guys to also go out and grab the book. If you haven't already grabbed the book, go out and grab the book. In the show notes will be a link so that you can purchase the book. And really listen to what she has to say about the mindset. Because this is one of the biggest things that I find in practice that really holds people back. One is the preconceived notions for a lot of things that really keeps people from taking a step forward into getting better in their health. And also, while they're maybe they do take a step forward, and while they're in treatment, it's these limiting belief systems that keep them from getting to the next level or improving in their health. And JJ speaks about all of that today in today's show. So sit back, relax, enjoy what she has to say. And at the end of this, I'm going to talk to you guys about a couple other things um, that we've been working on. Hey, everybody, welcome back to the What Up Doc University podcast. We got another special guest today. You guys all know her, JJ Virgin. And she has a brand new book out. And I'll put all the links to this in the show notes to all of this stuff. But let's jump straight into it, JJ. Um, Tell us a little bit about the book, The Miracle Mindset.
Tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah,
That's an open-ended question.
Yeah, I know, right? A little.
Well,
let's start at the moment. I know you talk in the book about your son's car accident, getting into that accident. Let's start right when you find out that he's been in the accident.
Yeah, my son had walked out that night. He was 16. He'd kind of stormed out of the house, teenage argument, and went to walk to a friend's house. And when he was crossing the street, he was the victim of a hit and run. And I found out because my ex-husband and my 15-year-old they were driving by the accident scene a couple blocks from our house. They didn't know what had happened. And it was clearly a massive accident scene. And one of the cops looked at my 15-year-old and said, another kid got hit and he looks just like him. So that was how we found out. They came running into the house to tell me, and we jumped in the car and drove to the hospital. We had no idea what we were going to see because they wouldn't give us any information over the phone. And when we got there, they told us that my son had been the victim of a hit and run. He had a torn aorta, which kills 90% of the people right on the scene. It's what killed Princess Diana. And his was literally, they said, hanging on by an onion skin and was going to rupture sometime in the next 24 hours if it wasn't repaired. But the challenge was he also had multiple brain bleeds. He had a severe traumatic brain injury. He was in a deep, deep coma. And the surgery that he needed wasn't something they could do at this hospital. It was a super specialized surgery that had to be done without a blood thinner. So in order to save his life, he would have to go to another hospital and be airlifted again. But the doctor told us, he's never going to survive another airlift. And you have to let him go. And he said, even if he were to survive that airlift, he's not going to survive another surgery. And even if he were to survive another surgery, he'd be so brain damaged it wouldn't be worth it. And my 15-year-old sitting listening to this doctor and looks at the doctor and he says, so maybe a 0.25% chance he'd make it. Doctor says, right, that's right. And Bryce told me later he thought to himself, well, that's not zero,
Yeah.
And, right? It's not zero. Zero
There's a
is
chance.
here.
There's a chance.
Yeah, I mean, we were at the hospital. There was no chance. And here at least there was a little chance. So Bryce looked at this doctor, and it's amazing to think about that at a 15 years old. He looked at the doctor. He goes, well, we'll take those odds. And so that began this journey of, helping my son who survived the airlift, survived that surgery, but then was in a deep coma for weeks and has literally been coming out of a severe traumatic brain injury now and 13 fractures. He had, his femurs had rods in them. They had to pin his heel back together, all sorts of stuff. But it has been a massive journey back. And during which time I also, as this whole thing was going on, I was launching my first big book, The Virgin Diet. Launched 3 more books during the next couple years, and people kept going, "How did you do it?" And that's what this book is about. It's not about grants making it through this. It's about what we did as a family and the mindset that we used to help us be able to go through this and handle it, because, hey, we all have to handle tough things in our lives. I mean, that's the one thing we know for sure.
Yeah. And, when I was going through the book, there's a part of me that started to cry. Our family kind of went through a similar thing. When my second son was born 2.5 months premature, and the doctors gave us the same thing. They said, well,
Mm.
we don't know if he's going to survive or not. We don't know if mom's going to survive through all of this. Um, but in your book, you said, and this really hit me the hardest. He says, I didn't allow those thoughts to linger. As long as he was alive, there was hope. How did you develop that mindset? How did you go through that? Because most people would crumble.
Well, fortunately, and this is, hey, we're in the health field. Here's the biggest challenge:
Yeah.
selling prevention.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? I was like, I already had it, and that's, thank God. I don't know how I would have gotten through it otherwise. Just when I turned 30, I had a really amazing client. I was a personal trainer back then, paying my
Hmm.
way through grad school, and she offered to coach me in business. And she was this self-made multimillionaire, and I actually moved into her house. And she started out with teaching me how to surround myself with positivity. She actually made me wear these little bracelets around my wrist. And anytime I said anything negative, I had to snap them.
Ah.
And honestly, I thought I was like not going to have any skin left on my wrist. You don't realize, if you're not focusing on it, how much negativity is around you. And and it's contagious.
Yeah.
Thankfully, so is positivity. But she taught me, how to wake up in gratitude, how to, keep a gratitude journal, all these things that were what allowed me to get through this. And if I hadn't had those things in place, I think I would have been paralyzed by the fear. I mean, this is like, as you said, when you go through these things as a parent, I can handle anything else, but I'm like, don't mess with my kids.
Yeah.
But the other side of that, when people said I could never have done what you did, I'm like, when your kid's life is on the line, it's pretty amazing what you will do. You hear about moms pulling cars off their kids. It's like, I just needed to know that there was hope, and I couldn't entertain the thought that there wasn't. So anything that came in that was like, oh, he'll never walk again, I'm like, get out of the room. I just, early on, like the first day in the hospital, I looked at Grant, held his hand, held like 3 fingers because everything else was bandaged
Yeah.
and just gravel, everything else. And I said, Grant, you're going to be 110%, honey. You're going to be better because of this. I just need you to fight. And said, I will pull in everybody that we need to help you here. I'm going to pull in the troops,
Mhm.
but you just got to fight. And so I just kept asking that question all the way through. And it turns out that being curious and asking the right question and being open to possibility, which is one of the attributes I talk about in the book, The Miracle Mindset, is one of the key ways to build resilience.
Mm.
And to think about it, what if I'd said, what if my big question was, how do I get my son to survive? I've got to believe the outcome would have been very different than how do I get my son to be better than before?
Well, what's the difference between that?
So think about if you're just going, gosh, I just hope he makes it through the night. I just want him to survive.
Yeah.
Maybe he's in a wheelchair. Maybe he's a vegetable. Maybe,
Yeah.
that's very different than I want my son to be 110%. I want my son to be better than he was before the accident. I want this to give him a bigger purpose. I want this to mean something in his life. That was what I just started going through, was this is going to be the best thing that happened to him. This is going to help him, create a purpose in his life. And
That's powerful.
right. Yeah, as he was coming out of it, I mean, brain injuries, I had no experience with the brain injury. When the doctors told me the brain has its own time schedule. There's nothing you can do, and it will be ugly. Those were the instructions I was given.
Yeah. That's typical.
That's terrible because it's not true anyway, So I just was like, if I hadn't have had this to hold on to and to tell Grant when he was in these deep depressions that happened with a brain injury, Grant, there's a bigger purpose. There's a bigger purpose. You'll see he was like, I don't even know why I'm here. People coming out of brain injuries, it's a really rough thing.
Yeah. Now there's one thing that that really stood out to me is that during this time, obviously it's very trying. It's kind of stressful. And then, you did this one thing, you reached out to your support team, you reached out to your family, you wrote that letter out to your family, and you also reached out on social media. And I don't think a lot of people understand the power of this collective consciousness. And it's talked about in many other books. There was one book by Dr. Masaru Emoto where he talks about the how when people gather in prayer circles and all this kind of stuff, the effects that it has on it. In your opinion, do you think that that was a very key component of it all?
It's here's the converse of that,
Yeah.
that social isolation. These latest research is showing that being isolated is as bad for your health as smoking 15 cigarettes a day.
Wow.
I knew, yes,
And that's
yes.
and
I
then-
mean,
and
isn't
that's
that
our modern day,
crazy?
isn't it? Isn't
Yes,
right?
we are all so isolated. I knew this was way too big to go through on my own and that I had to get help. So I reached out to my whole community, but I also knew that I was I was so overwhelmed. I mean, my voicemail was full. I was getting texts, like text after text after text and emails. And so what I did was I lived the whole thing out on Facebook. Even my mom, I'm like, Mom, you have to go on Facebook. That's where I'm going to be reporting every day. And, there were a couple people who really attacked me for doing that.
Yeah, I bet.
And yep, right. Of
Yeah.
course, I'm like, there's always those haters.
Right. You get
But
they're
oh
thinking you're
yeah,
exploiting it, and
I
yeah,
can't believe
yeah,
you're doing this. Well, but
yeah.
here's what happened because of it. Other people, because I just shared, I went, you know what? I have access to people most people won't have, because I put a a big SOS out to my entire community,
Hmm.
and I got amazing responses back. And so I was doing things. I was doing progesterone, high dose fish oil, things that people wouldn't normally get access to. And the actual researchers were connecting with me to tell me how they did it. Right. So I was sharing all this on my Facebook page, and other people started following what I was doing. They started doing that with their people who suffered a brain injury. So you
Yeah.
know what? I'm like going, so for you people there who are like, I can't believe you're doing this. I'm like, I'm going to do more of it. I'm going to be as vocal as possible, because if I save one life with it,
Yeah.
all you haters, like, what are you doing to save a life out there? So if I have to, I'm not exploiting my son. I'm helping change the world by getting information out. That's what's so awesome now about the internet, about podcasts, is that you can get a hold of information that 20, 30 years ago, had this happened, I don't know how I would have been able to get the word out and get support.
Hey guys, one of the foundational tools that we use in our practice is that of alkalization of the body. And this is one of the main reasons why we get such great results in our clinic. And one of the ways that we were taught to alkalize the body by my mentors was to tell our patients to eat tons and tons of dark green leafy vegetables. But as you can imagine, compliance was not so well with having to eat tons and tons of dark green leafy vegetables, like bowls upon bowls. And I was sitting around one day and wishing upon a star, Walt Disney reference there, wishing upon a star that this could just be easier. And then lo and behold, um, the world of juicing, right, comes upon me. I get exposed to this world of juicing, but it became such a burden upon myself and upon patients as well, of having to go to the grocery store and shop for things and having a good blender to extract the nutrients and taking the time to do all of this. And then another thing happened. I was exposed to the Organifi green drink, which really simplified a lot of things for my practice, for myself, and for my patients. It's basically all the dark greens that you need in a powder form that you can just put in your shakes and get the dark greens that you need. Packed with chlorella, moringa, spirulina, mint, beets, matcha green tea, wheatgrass, ashwagandha, turmeric, coconut water infused crystals. But despite all of those things, the one question that often people ask is, does it taste good? And I'm here to tell you, it does taste good. It's good enough. It tastes good enough. What I mean that my children even drink it. So, um, what we've worked out for you guys is a discount. So if you guys go to whatupdocuniversity.com/green drink, you're going to be able to get a discount on it for 15%. So you're going to get a 15% discount on the Organifi green drink. So go ahead and try that out. It's very, very important. And you also ran across the book, the Proof of Heaven book.
Yes.
And then you wrote, because I know this crosses a lot of my patients' minds. I deal with a lot of patients that are terminal illnesses and all this kind of stuff. And they come into the office and they're very scared. And then you wrote here, it says, even if he didn't make it, there was something else out there for him. And every time you looked at the book, you told yourself, no matter what, it's going to be okay.
And I had to, as I was writing
Yeah.
this book, I had to keep that same thought process. And what was interesting is Grant had a near-death experience. We actually just did a TV show where he talked about it, and they kept us on for extra segments because everyone's like wanted to know more about it. But
Yeah.
he now talks to people who've just lost loved ones and comforts them because he's like, it's really great over on the other side.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't want to come back. I just kept hearing my mom talking and my parents, and I came back for them, but I was like better over there. It was like really great over there. I'm like, oh, okay. But, that's the other side that, so much of what I was doing, I wanted to make sure that what I was doing was what he would want me to do. And even the first night when I thought, should we overrule the doctor? Should we save him? Is this what he wants? Like I wanted to make sure I wasn't bringing him back and I'd have this person who was so broken and damaged. They'd be like, why did you do this, Mom?
Yeah.
So I really wanted to make sure that I was doing it for the right reasons. And then I also knew that I had to know that I'd exhausted everything in my search to help him through all of this stuff. And so, and to really manage all the environment and the talking around him, because I knew he could hear us. And that's a super important thing for people to realize is, and you've heard this enough from people in comas, when they come out of them, they talk about what was going on around them. Grant not only talked about what was going on around him, he actually told us about things that he saw while we were in the waiting room during a surgery. And he would have no way of knowing these things. There were no documentation of them, no pictures of them. He described what my ex-husband was wearing, where we were. I'm like, whoa, crazy stuff, right?
Yeah.
So, really manage that talk around there, because just like you said, we had people praying every religion. We covered every religion, right? I left no stones unturned. But all of that energy matters. And the talking around him, we had some doctor come in and say he'd never walk again. And I'm like, you're out of here. And if you believe that, you really can't work on his case because, I believe you get what you expect. So I'm only going to be with people who expect him to be better than before.
Yeah. You wrote about slipping into that what if spiral, going back and saying, what if I did this? Things would have turned out differently. I don't know, a lot of people go through that. And it's like, well, how did I get to this point in my life? What if I did this differently? Blah, blah, blah. How did you get out of that thought process of, almost like regret?
Oh my gosh. And that's one that we can do in every part of our life. It's why people get depressed. They go back over the what ifs.
Yeah.
And that's where I have a little thing that I do that helps keep me here now and not slipping back into the past, being depressed or scared and anxious about the future. And the first thing that I do every morning is gratitude. So every morning, this is, early on, I had this mentor that helped me, thank God, otherwise Grant wouldn't be here. I would have probably done a lay down. But, every morning I pull out a journal and I write down 3 things I'm grateful for. And then every night I would look at what went well today. And then if things start to go really sideways during the day, and this is what I still do now, all these things, they keep me going each day, is if you're getting into a really bad spot during the day and you need a state shift, just text someone and tell them what you appreciate about them. And, what helped me with the what ifs is always having a plan of action and staying in action. But the other part of the what ifs is, what if this is exactly what's supposed to be happening? What if this is the thing? I mean, I will tell you that I asked Grant a couple weeks ago, I said, hey, let's go back 4.5 years. You now know what's going to happen if you cross the street. Would you still cross the street? And he said, I'd still cross the street. And I mean, this is a kid with pins in his heel, rods in his femur. And, he's gone through just missed the last couple of years of high school, lost all his friends going through this, and he said, "I'm better because of it."
Mm. Not a lot of people can say that.
Well, it's really a choice. He
Yeah.
could say, "I lost all my friends," and he could. It's what you decide to focus on.
Yeah.
This could have been the best thing that ever happened to him and our family, or the worst thing that ever happened to us. And it could be either. You could make a case for either one.
Yeah, you said it right. It is a choice. I mean, you see so many different stories of people. There are people born without arms and hands, yet they lead such a happy life. And it's that choice. And I think it summarizes in your whole book that you look at our modern day society, we are isolated. We think that we need to solve our problems by getting more things in our life, accumulating things and becoming this materialistic things. And we don't really reach that level of happiness. Would you say that Grant's happier now than he was before?
Oh, there's zero question of that. He's definitely happier. My son, prior to the accident, he has struggled with bipolar disorder. He was finally kind of in a place where he was doing a lot better, but it was always frustrating. And that's why I looked at this and I went, we get a do-over. Let's see what happens here. He's definitely happier. He feels like he has a purpose. There's still bad days, but we all have bad days.
Yeah. Yeah.
And but he's actually taken, and I think this is a key thing. He's taken responsibility for his health and for his life. It's one of the key components that I work on with all of my programs, is that you've got to take personal responsibility. In fact, it is really the difference between, say, what I would call a miracle mindset and what you see out there with people who are frustrated and feeling like victims, is they have what's called a fixed mindset, where they believe life happens to them. There's nothing they can do. In the world of health, we'll hear, "Oh, it's just my genetics," right?
Yeah.
Right. Or if it's out in business, "Oh, it's like I'm not, I didn't go to the right school," or blah, blah, blah. And you get what you expect, and you've got the control. And when you start to realize that it all comes down to your mindset, those key attributes of seeing possibility, taking action, being courageous, resilience, having forgiveness, being collaborative, supporting other people, not being in that scarcity mindset where you believe if you do that, you'll lose,
Yeah.
But when you start to see those things, what I noticed early on as I started to, people said, "How did you get through this?" And I started to really look at how I got through it. And I started to look at other people who I'd really admire. Is the common factor I saw with all of these people was not that they had it easy, it's that they had it rough. It's like you look at some of the most successful people and they've just gone through the most stuff.
Yeah, true. Very true. Couple things. One, when you were in there, you brought in your own food, right? To feed Grant and all this stuff, and then you kind of
hospital
did you
food?
get exactly. What's your thoughts on dietitians and these people in the hospital giving ice cream, milkshakes, and all that kind of stuff too, and cookies to their patients? What's your thought process? What's your thoughts on that?
Isn't it just how is this still happening? I just
I
don't
don't
get
know.
it. It's so crazy. I mean, the first place you're going to really heal, is with food. It's so critical. One of the first words Grant said was, he pointed to the hospital food and said, "Disgusting." I'm like, that my boy is in there. But I actually had to put a sign up on the wall that said, "No Ensure, no Crystal Light." They
Oh
wanted to give
gosh.
him they have artificial sweeteners in the hospital. They were going to give artificial sweeteners that are neuroexcitatory to a brain that's injured and is, can have seizures. Like, I was going, wait a minute, guys, what are you thinking?
Wow.
So I just made a commitment that I was going to haul in all my own food. I had a NutriBullet in there. I was bringing in food, and it was a pain in the butt because they had no refrigerator. The second hospital had a refrigerator. We could do this, and they actually had sushi downstairs. Grant ate a ton of sushi in the second hospital, but in the first hospital, there was nothing. I mean, it was that typical standard hospital fare of the pancakes and all that crap.
Wow.
And they looked at me because every day I would bring all this stuff in. I was going over to Whole Foods and getting them wild salmon and getting them grass-fed beef. And they're going, we've never seen a parent do this. And I go, I can't believe you've never seen a parent do this. Like, I can't understand how you couldn't do this. Plus, I could sneak a lot of stuff into the smoothie. So that was the other exciting thing.
Yeah. Well, I want to wrap up with this last question, and I thank you again for your time and sharing us with your story. Again, guys, go out and get the book, The Miracle Mindset. I'll put a link to it in the show notes. JJ, one last thing. What's the most surprising thing that you've learned from this entire experience? What was the thing that came out of it that you weren't expecting to learn?
So this is one that now that I've really looked at the research of it,
Yeah.
makes perfect sense, but it's just not talked about, is that forgiveness is not just not going after someone. Like, my son was a victim of a hit and run, and everyone's
Sure.
like, aren't you going to go get that woman? That woman
Right,
hit me."
right.
And I'm like, no, I need to focus on my son. So I never put any energy towards her, but I also didn't actively forgive her. And what I realized after the fact, because one of my buddies has this program called 40 Years of Zen.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So Dave Asprey
Dave,
made
yeah.
me, Dave's
Yeah.
one of my very best friends. So Dave took me to 40 Years of Zen.
Wow.
Because he saw I was flatlined. I was like, no joy, no anger. I was just kind of there, right? And he's like, you're coming to this. And I didn't know what I was going to. Well, it turns out it was all about raising your alpha brain waves that give you joy and peace, and mine were flatlined. And the way you raise your alpha brain waves the easiest is through forgiveness.
Wow.
But it's not just saying, oh, I forgive. In fact, it's got nothing to do with the other person. It's learning how to go through an active forgiveness process where you internally forgive them. And the way that you really do that is by getting really empathetic, stepping into their shoes and feeling what they must have felt, and then looking for the gift in the situation. And once I learned that process, and it was interesting because, they take you through this and you've got electrodes on your head so that you can they can tell if you're cheating, like if you're not really forgiving the person, which is super interesting. But once I learned that process, I could repeat it. But once I learned that process, I realized that it wasn't just forgiving the woman. It wasn't just forgiving my son. It wasn't, then I had to forgive me. I mean, it just keeps going. And ultimately what you do find out is you are the biggest person who you have to forgive. And when you do, it sets you free. It's amazing.
Wow. Powerful stuff. Hey, where can people find you?
They can find me at jjvirgin.com.
Perfect. Well, there you have it, guys. Go out and get the book today, read it, and pick up her other books because the other books are great as well. Been a fan for a very long time and love the work that you're doing. And you guys are both lucky to have each other. You're lucky to have a son like him, and he's lucky to have a mom like you. Any last words you want to leave our audience?
Yeah, what I talked about there with having that gratitude practice, the biggest thing that helped me get through this, the only way I managed to get through this, is I already had these things in place. And the thing we know for sure is that we're going to go through some crazy stuff in our lives. And hey, we go through challenges every day, and it really comes down to how you show up in the world. And it can be the simplest little things, like starting every day and pulling out a journal and writing down a couple things you're grateful for, or deciding you're going to focus on actively forgiving people, not walking around holding a little grudge, that set you free and change your life and give you that ability to show up so much bigger in your life. And that's really ours to build and develop, which is what's so fantastic here, right? It's not outside of us, it's within us to do.
There you have it, guys. Go out and get the book. Thanks again, JJ.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
Wow. That's all I have to say about that is wow. If you guys have not read the book, go out and get the book and read it and really internalize it, because there's so much information there that I can guarantee you guys that you guys will face a moment in your life where you're going to need this type of information. And this is often the part that's overlooked, is the mindset that you will need to go through a difficult situation in your life. So this is very, very valuable information. And JJ, again, hats off. Thank you. Mahalo nui loa for taking the time and sharing your wisdom, or in Hawaii we call it your mana'o, with all of us. And guys, we got some more great episodes coming up in the queue. I've been looking at what's in the queue. I'm so excited to get you guys some of these different episodes coming up. We got Ty Bollinger is going to be talking about vaccines. We got Dr. Michael Bruce, who's going to be talking about your chronotypes. If you guys don't know what that means, go look it up. Chronotypes. Um, we also got none other than Dr. Mike. Hey, that's me talking to you guys about how to choose a nutritional supplement. We're gonna dive more into vaccines and the research behind that. But coming up next week will be the episode that you guys have been asking for. The truth about vaccines with Ty Bollinger. He's going to be talking about his series, The Truth About Vaccines, and some of the research that he's been involved with and learning from while doing this research. This I guess docu series about vaccines. So stay tuned for it for next week. Again, guys, if you guys have any questions, any comments, feel free to reach out to us at info@whatupdocuniversity.com. If you've loved the show, we'd appreciate leaving a 5-star review on iTunes. And you know what this does is it helps to get this message out there so that others can see and hear about what we're doing. Um, if you guys feel so inclined, please share this with friends and family. Post it on Facebook, post it on Twitter, Instagram, and you can follow us on all those different channels. All of those handles are be in the show notes. So go ahead and go to www.whatupdocuniversity.com/episode 55, where you can find all the show notes for this episode. I hope you guys got some great information from this and you can take and apply this. Until the next episode, I'll be with you in your earbuds. Be well and aloha.